Whether you're solving murders during breakfast, cracking cold cases on your commute, or playing amateur detective at bedtime, Amazon Music's got millions of podcast episodes waiting. Just download the Amazon Music app and start listening to your favorite true crime podcasts ad-free, included with Prime.
I was just on autopilot, just going through life. And I think first, you have to recognize, one, that something's wrong, whether it's being on autopilot or you're putting your career above someone else. And, tips to combat that is you have to take time for yourself. Can't these gurus and these coaches and the people like, oh, just grind your face off and keep going. No, and I don't truly believe there's any form of balance, but you have to tip the scales in the direction that you want to go. So if you know that you need more time for yourself, then you need to make that a non-negotiable and take that time for yourself.
Hi, welcome to Emotionally Unavailable. This is truly a show about me and my journey. When I started Emotionally Unavailable, I thought I was just learning how to be more vulnerable. But somewhere along the way, vulnerability became transformation. Emotional, spiritual, human. Every guest I've spoken with has been a mirror, a teacher, a reflection of something I was meant to see. These conversations aren't interviews, they're energy exchanges. I'm not here as an expert, I'm here as a student of life. And together, we're learning what it really means to open our hearts, to show up honestly, and to find connection in the spaces we once hid from. The journey back to ourselves starts here. Hey everybody, happy Friday. Hope it's fabulous and fun. Today's guest is Rob Wheeler, a Navy veteran with 10 years of service, a former federal police officer, and the founder of BattleFitted, a personal development brand built on the mission of turning pain into progress. Rob is a certified personal trainer, speaker, podcast host, and mindset coach who helps people overcome trauma, build resilience, and live with purpose through structure, discipline, and fitness. He's also a father of 3, a husband, and a passionate advocate for mental health and veteran empowerment. So I'm going to make this intro short because I'm tired and don't feel like recording one today. Had a good time with Rob. I was on his show, Battle Harder, not too long ago and made a great connection. And, I hope a few brave men will listen to this episode. And I mean, not that women can't take away things too, but I have a predominantly female audience. So I hope that if you know anyone who wears any type of uniform for their profession and needs to hear this, share this episode because I feel like it's pretty powerful. So, had a good time with Rob and I'm going to keep it short. So give it a listen. Here's me and Rob. Have a fabulous Friday, a wonderful weekend. I love you. I appreciate you being here and I'll see y'all next week. Emotionally unavailable. All right. Well, welcome. I don't know if you know this, but I post a separate intro whenever it's time to post the episode. But for this, we kind of just hop right into the conversation. I met you through your podcast, which, if I'm not mistaken, is called Battle Harder. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, yeah. But I was just looking at your profile again earlier, and what I remembered from our conversation whenever I was on your show is, well, I was pleasantly surprised because a lot of men kind of in the space that you're in, they really are kind of like just quote unquote mindset folk, but aren't like always doing that deeper work or whatever. And I remember like really loving that you have, always, whatever. But also, it felt like our struggles were so similar. And I mean, I think that's just because that's, the way of trauma, and we all kind of end up with the same outcomes, even if we got to them a little differently, because like my trauma was probably different than yours. But
Right.
that's kind of what I wanted to get into first was, so you are a veteran and you've worked for the federal police. I don't know if I'm saying that correct.
You are.
Was that where most of your trauma centered, or did you come into those situations already having had, like, childhood trauma?
So, unbeknownst to me, I did have some sort of childhood trauma. I don't think it reared its head or really showed me anything until after I got out of the military and as I started to deep dive in all this stuff that I'm currently doing. But yes, primarily the 10 years in the Navy and then the 15 plus total time of law enforcement and everything that I deal with in between that. Not to mention a marriage over 18 years in 2017 that fell apart, primarily due to my mental health and my anger. So it was just kind of a culmination of anything. I think, when things start to get really, really bad, and we start to recognize that, it kind of seems like everything blows up all at once. And then, you're forced to jump in and deal with as much as you can, here and there, little by little.
Yeah. Well, and it would be so great if we could come to any sort of understanding from rainbows and sunshine, but it's kind of the blowing up our lives that kind of gets us. Well, I mean, the truth is you've got two choices. When your life starts to implode that way, okay, I don't want to feel this way. I want to feel better, or the alternative, which is to continue to spiral and take that road wherever it takes you. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's why we did that. But also, I just wish it didn't take implosion to get to a place of like, oh, okay, maybe I should change a little bit. But I guess that's why they say you got to hit rock bottom, right?
Yeah, I think it took me 18 years to essentially realize that I had some form of mental health issue, and then another 7 to 8 years to somehow get out of it. And I think we talked about this on my podcast about the fact that my depression, my anxiety, some of my trauma is never ever going to go away. It's just going to be
Mm-hmm.
there. But as long as I do the things to help, and I always tell people it's a totality of circumstances. So, for me, fitness and nutrition, personal development, mindset. I do take medication for my PTSD and depression. I do take medication for mood. I go see a counselor. And I think if I removed any one piece from that puzzle, I would probably go back to where I was just 100% negative all the time, every time.
Yeah. Do you think that it was so hard for you to recognize because what you were experiencing on the inside didn't look on the outside the way you thought it should look if you needed help?
Well, I think for me, the main thing is I just as far back as I can remember, I guess I've been a negative person, and I assume a lot of that comes from my upbringing and my parents.
Mhm.
So you carry that negativity into the military, into being a cop, and you deal with all the extra stuff, and it just like I said, I was just so dark all the time, like so dark. My current wife would say I was like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, or if you
Mm.
ever seen the troll movies, Branch, the negative Nancy guy all the time, and it took me a long, long time to just realize, like, damn, my life really isn't that bad. Why am I always sad and upset? And we talked about the chemical, imbalance in our brains and stuff like that, and realizing that some of my mental health, yeah, it was brought on by me and my actions and how I feel and how I act and behave. But some of it's brought on by, this chemical imbalance that I have no control over. So
Mhm.
once again, that's where trying to figure out what works and treat yourself kind of like a test subject, um,
Yes,
and
yes.
keep finding what works, and then you do that until it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I like that. Well, and also I think when you say that, what I hear too is that you were very protective over yourself because that's all negativity really is. I mean, is like I don't want to get my hopes up because I've already been betrayed by the world, and so I'm going to see everything as glass half empty so that I don't have to put myself out there. I don't have to be vulnerable. I can confirm this negativity bias that I already have. And while I think outwardly, I probably didn't come off as negative as the way you're describing yourself, like, I wanted to be the life of the party and things like that, but, like, certainly my husband, complained about my negativity because, well, I would meet somebody new and be like, can't stand him," things like that. And he'd be like, "Why do you have to see the worst in everyone?" And it would hurt me so bad because truly I was like, "What do you I know people." Like, I mean, the truth is I was rarely wrong about my assumptions about people, but also I just wouldn't enter a new environment with so many defenses up now. So like I definitely know where he's coming from, but I had the same shit. I mean, it was a constant evaluation of my environment to see who would fuck me over, who's just gonna be a liar. I was always looking for a liar. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just it looked a little different. And also, men can be a little scarier when they're on that end of the spectrum because 'cause you're louder, you're bigger, stronger, and so I'm not deemed as big of a threat, though I definitely was, maybe not physically, but emotionally, I was a threat to other people's safety, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I just, occasionally I have meltdowns still, and I do really good. And I actually had a meltdown a few days ago, and my wife, like you said, when that happens, she looks at me like, "Oh shit, like maybe I should leave the house because I don't know what he's gonna do." And I'm never gonna hurt my wife, but just I understand how us as men, if we don't control that emotion, that rage, that anger, how scary it can be. And even when, I was married to my first wife, I have 3 kids. I remember I couldn't control my anger at all to the point where I'd like throw my hands through walls and break stuff and like just throw these adult temper tantrums that didn't
Mhm.
benefit anything. And I remember my daughter one time looking at me like I scared the soul out of her. And that was kind of essentially the beginning where I was like, okay, I think I need to calm down a little bit or see what's going on. And it's just, I think as men, especially if you're a military or first responder, you get beaten into your body that you have to be tough. You get beaten in your body that you can't have emotion. And it's not because they don't want you to, but they're trying to actually protect you when you go through this scary stuff or you go into a
Right.
bad situation. But it also keeps you from being emotional and having emotions because you just become this, robot of non-emotions. And you know, as a man, you're like, "Oh, that makes me tough, and that makes me being able to, be protective," and it just makes you a hot mess more than anything.
Well, and what I think people are discounting about careers that train you to be robots is truly the fact that they're teaching you very much to act on autopilot so that you don't think before you act, because that's kind of what that, warfare is. I mean, that's what those life or death situations is, that you need to be able to respond without thinking. When you're acting from your subconscious, you're not connected to your body. So there is no intuition, there's no emotion, there's no anything. And also, your subconscious is where all the shit you've ever been programmed to believe about yourself is. So when that's playing in your day-to-day life like that, that's not going to impact you positively. Not to say that people shouldn't have those careers, but if we're not being aware of this, and I don't truly, I don't have a solution because I don't know how you could do those careers any other way, especially on a battlefield, but like y- it is what it is. And maybe better debriefing or processing of the experiences on a more regular basis would be helpful. But that's what you're doing, is operating from the place where all of the worst things that you believe about yourself are hiding anyway.
Yeah, but, I think if I remember right, typically as a police officer, you literally have like 30 seconds to react depending on any given situation. And, you know, you have to be very solid in your action and how you act because that could be the difference between life and death. But I think the answer is in one. I'm trying to build initiatives where hopefully I can go into police departments and firehouses and talk about the importance of emotional regulation, mental health, fitness, nutrition, all the things that can keep you grounded. And even from my own experience, I had to learn that when you're in the military or you're a police officer, first responder, whatever, any job that you're in a super high stress situation, when you're off the clock, you're off the clock. You're not a police officer anymore, or you're a father, you're a husband, and you have to be able to get to a point that before you step that through that threshold of that door, whether it's sitting in your car and breathing or listening to a podcast or going for a walk, whatever you have to do before you step in that threshold to be able to turn that off and emotionally regulate. Cause I can't tell you how many bad days I had. And as soon as I walked in the house, you know, what do you want for dinner? And I'm yelling at my wife, and not
Yes.
because I
You
hate
can't
her or
make any
mad
more
at her.
decisions.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm my bandwidth is done for the day. We only have so much energy we can give. So you have to be able to recognize that, oh crap, I'm not talking to my family properly and it's because of the job. And then really the first responders, like they need to have better initiatives not to scare people into feeling like they have some sort of issue or PTSD or struggle, because the first thing we think, I'm going to lose my job. They're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to fire me. And so a lot of times we keep that bottled up, and then that pressure builds and you just explode. And that's when, maybe a police officer takes it out on somebody that shouldn't have to, and they're on the news, and now they're going to jail, and now their life's ruined because they didn't deal with that trauma that they've been dealing with at work for, 15, 20 years. And statistically, law enforcement officers are almost killing themselves at the same rate, if not more, than military members, because we don't have these initiatives of mental health to tell someone it's okay that if you see a dead body that you're not okay with that. And, you know,
Right.
so because it's normal, and it makes you human. And that's what we're missing, is that human element.
Yeah, I think because somewhere in the training, you begin to believe that you're becoming superhuman. Not in like a bravado kind of way, but like I've taught my brain this thing. And like, yeah, your brain is activated from this different place and it is operating like a robot, but like the more you stay there, the less capable you are of dealing with the feelings. You're
Yeah,
absolutely right.
definitely.
And that makes me think of like women, myself included, who don't want to tell their doctor they're struggling with postpartum depression because they don't want to be labeled as the postpartum psychosis lady who's going to kill their kid.
Yeah, once again, anything that you're going through, if you don't have support, if you don't seek some form of health, or if you just don't jump in head on and try to take care of it, you're just going to be sad, upset, depressed, and everything's going to suck, and life's going to get to the point where you're going to make those scary decisions like, do I want to be here anymore? And that's not a
Mhm.
fun place to be. So,
No, it's a very dark place to be. So, okay, you had this really long marriage that ended. Was that What was the beginning of your shift like? Like, what were some, because I remember mine was just like these really small steps that overall were making a difference, but in my daily life, I'm wailing all the time. I'm crying, I'm still screaming, I'm still looking like a psycho. But I could feel some small shifts, but like it didn't look great on the outside. But like, was that kind of how it went for you too?
actually, for me, like, I guess coming from a religious Christian background, when I got married, I thought, that's it. You don't get divorced. You try to fix your problems.
Mhm.
Um, and I stayed in it for my kids. I have 3 kids. My daughter's 26, my middle son's 24, and then my youngest is 13. And, you know, as a man, and I guess from the mental health perspective for anybody hearing this, when you think you have to get divorced and you decide not to, you're like, I'm not going to get divorced because I don't want to go through the process of getting a divorce. I ended up going through the process anyway. So why did I stay unhappy for 18 years? Because of my children, who now they're fine, they're okay, they're, doing their thing, living their life, and they're not messed up typically anymore from the divorce, and it did take time to heal, but I should have just done it, 10 years in. And sometimes when you're not compatible with someone, and then you add mental health issues and you compound that, like, there was really no point in me being with my first wife. I kind of rushed into it. And as we were fine because we were both in the military, and then we were fine until we moved in with each other. And as soon as we moved in with each other, everything like shifted and got weird, and we're fighting over, silly stuff. I remember one time I had an argument with her over watching the MTV Music Awards because I didn't want to watch it. And we had one, TV in the house at the time. We would go to work, come home, and go to her room, and there was no like family unit unless we went out and did something. So I have mental health issues. Every year we're yelling, arguing, talking about divorce. I think we talked about getting divorced probably a million times during the course of that 18 years.
Yeah.
And eventually just too much was too much and it had to end.
Yeah. It sounds like she had mental health issues too.
I believe she does. Her
Yeah.
mom, God rest her soul, she wasn't a nice person. So,
Yeah.
and she didn't really have a father in her life.
Well, so what did your transformation kind of look like?
So, uh, my wife now, so I'm currently been with my wife for 8 years. We've been married for almost 2 years now. And I remember that throughout the course of the 8 years, around the 6.5, 7 year mark, I'm still freaking out and I'm still throwing temper tantrums. And I'm still yelling and screaming. And, my wife is telling me, I don't like the way you're talking to me. And, I'm not really giving a crap about it because I'm stuck in this mental hell. And I'm just, one day I was like, man, I can't keep doing this. Like, I love this woman to death. She's, so amazing. And I'm going to lose another marriage and, actually want to keep this marriage. Like this woman is very important to me. And so I knew I had to shift. And as funny as it sounds, because I still don't believe it happened this way, for me, it just started with gratitude. I was on social media. Someone was talking about it. I laughed at it. I was like, this is the dumbest thing in my entire life. But I went to bed and I started thinking about things that I was thankful for. And every night for as long as I can remember now, I would think of three things. And it wouldn't matter, if it was the same three things over and over again. At least I was thankful for something. And now I just try to practice that in my daily life. Like, I have a huge issue with finances. I have a huge issue with always wanting nice things and expensive things and wanting like a new car every year. And, it's messed up my finances and credit. And now, if I see a vehicle I want, I'm like, okay, I just tell myself, that affirmation, I'll have that in the future. But for now, I have a very good vehicle. It's very nice. I start thinking about, oh, well, it has leather and heated seats. And that gets me out of that mental loop of being stuck in that negativity.
Hmm.
So that right there, and then the emotional regulation, like I never would even thought about this term or knew about this term until I got into this space and people started talking about reframing and emotional regulation and all that stuff. I have to do that a million times a day. And I do it because it works. Someone cuts me off. I get ready to start yelling. I'm like, nope, I'm okay. I'm not in a rush. I'm just gonna, do what I have to do and not worry about it. And that's been huge. The emotional regulation and reframing things and saying things like I get to go to the gym instead of I have to go to the gym.
Hmm.
Those little things right there have been so instrumental in changing my mood with a lot of things.
Yeah. What is the, because you're a coach too, right? So what is the primary thing that you're seeing with your clients in
Um,
terms of struggles?
it just depends. So I consider myself a high performance coach. So I typically deal with men 30 and plus that, they've probably had a really good job, a great marriage, and somewhere along the way they got stuck. And I can literally look at any man and look at their fitness, mindset, or discipline and realize that when you're stuck, you're either lacking one of those things or you're lacking a combination of those things. And most of the time, a man gets, in that rat race. Maybe he's a corporate employee, a president, somewhere where he has a high stress job. And he starts focusing on the job because he's making good money and, that's how he provides. But then it's the late nights, it's the meetings, it's the telling his wife, I'll be there in an hour and you don't show up. And it's, getting that man to change that perspective and that attitude that, well, my family comes first and the job is just a job, and asking, questions that most people want action. I was coaching a older man. He worked for the government for like 20 years and they fired him in an instant when they did all this cutbacks and stuff. And he was devastated. And all I said to him, and he had a hard time getting out of this loop of being this government employee. And I had to tell him multiple times, like, dude, that's not who you are. The job is not who you are. And, your life, your chapter is not over. You have plenty of things you can still do. And the main question, I guess, that got him to make him think, I was like, how do you want your daughter to see you when you're gone off this earth? And he just like, jaw hit the floor. He's like, no one's ever asked me that. I said, that is your most important thing. How your wife, how your daughter sees you. So when you're dead and gone, they're like, my dad was amazing. So it's just shifting men's perspectives to get them back to doing what they probably did until, they found this rut wherever they got stuck. And I think in life, we all get stuck. We get to a point where life gets comfortable and, it's the normal, I got to go to work. I got to pick up the kids. I got to take them to practice. And you don't focus on, well, crap, I'm not loving myself anymore. I'm not taking care of myself anymore. And, one thing that my wife used to say to me, she's like, I love you, but I love myself more. And that piece used to make me mad. I'm like, why are you saying this? I'm your husband. You should love me. And it took me a long life to realize that if you don't love yourself, if you can't take care of yourself, you can't be a good leader. You can't be a good parent. You can't be a good spouse because you have to love yourself first. You have to have some sort of self-worth and care. And obviously, when we have mental health issues, a lot of times that goes away.
Yeah. And I think to your point about legacy, even, you can't leave any type of like positive legacy if you haven't gotten to a place where you understand your worth and value as a human and love yourself unconditionally and have unconditional positive regard, because it's from that place that we create a life we're in love with and a life that you can be proud of, that your family speaks of proudly, whatever. But yeah, I think too many times, I mean, I know I never like over identified like with career, but I didn't necessarily know who I was in my like identity. I could I had a really solid understanding of my identity as the career part of me, but even as a mom, it took a long time to understand that part of my identity. But it was very difficult for me to see that I truly lacked self. I didn't know why I did the things I did, how my wounding was created, any of it. I mean, really what brought me joy? I mean, I remember a couple of times in like new jobs, they'd be like, "What do you do for fun?" And I'm like, "Well, I can't say drink vodka, so what am I gonna say?" you know?
Uh,
And I'd be like, "Shit, what can I say? What can I?" When I picked up running as a habit or a hobby, I was like, "Oh, I'm a runner." Like that was the only thing I had. But I mean, I really didn't have hobbies.
Yeah, we have to, and this goes out for like men and women. We have to find our identity. And, if you ask most people, who are you? Oh, well, I'm a police officer. No,
Mhm.
that's your job. Like, who are you? Well, I'm a father. No, who are you? Like, you have to get so down deep into the core to realize who you are as a person. And then if you don't like the bad traits, then you could go in there and start changing that. But you have to remember that, our jobs, they don't define us. It's just something, it's a tool that we use to, be able to pay the bills, go on vacation, have nice things, do the things we want, but that should not be the end all be all of your life.
Right. Well, and how could you like take the time to really take care of yourself if your entire focus is on your career or you're not focused at all and you're just living every minute of every day on autopilot? I mean, that's what I was doing for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times, especially when I had that deep down depression, I was just on autopilot, just going through life. And I think first, you have to recognize one, that something's wrong, whether it's being on autopilot or you're putting your career above someone else. And, tips to combat that is you have to take time for yourself. You can't, these gurus and these coaches and the people like, oh, just grind your face off and keep going. No, like, and I don't truly believe there's any form of balance, but you have to tip the scales in the direction that you want to go. So if you know that like you need more time for yourself, then you need to make that a non-negotiable and take that time for
Mhm.
yourself. And I think people kind of sometimes we get bogged down in the, oh, if I'm not performing well, I won't get that bonus, or my boss will, think that I'm slack. Like, and screw it. Like, as long as you're employed and that you're not miserable doing what you do, you go into work, you do what you have to do, and you go home. And then, after that time away from work, your days off being home, be a father, be a husband. Like I said, don't let that job define who you are. And being able to say no is huge. Like the people that, get stressed out and have heart attacks and work themselves to the grind are the people that don't say no. The boss
Mhm.
saying, "Oh, I need these reports today," and you're already backlogged on work and be like, "Well, unless you're not going to delegate this, I'm not doing it." And people just have to learn like no is such a superpower once you can get to that point. Like I do not bend my time for anybody because I only have so much time in the day. So,
Yeah. Well, I think too, if your focus is on a job and achieving higher ranks within a job, then you don't know how to spend time with yourself, and then you can't have like effective time with the people that you love. Like you're at home, you don't know how to be the person who spends time with their family. You just know how to be this employee. And then if you don't know how to spend time with the family, then that's when you're going to isolate a little bit, and that's when all the self-sabotaging behaviors start because you're isolated. And that's when I spend all my money. I'd be like, I'm lonely. Let
that's
me
when
get
you
on this
start
app and spend some
right.
money.
That's when you start doom scrolling, that's when you start overeating, that's when you start having, behaviors that aren't really acceptable. And I think, like you said, when you get this job, it's okay to have goals, it's okay to
Mhm.
wanna be successful and move up the ladder and stuff. But I think we get stuck on this, when I just get this thing, when I just make this promotion, when I just get this extra money, when I just get this car, I'm gonna be happy. And it never works that way. I can't tell you how many times when I was in this rut of like buying cars every year, I'd have the car for like 2 weeks and then my
Yes.
my happiness was over. And even with the holidays coming up, every year, I need your Christmas list. I need this. I need that. I'm like, I don't want to give you a Christmas list because if I want something, I'm just going to go buy it. And I feel like it's a waste of money if you buy me something, whether I put it on a list or not, for me to open it, that new shiny for 2 days, 3 days, and then it just sits in a drawer or sits on a shelf or doesn't get worn. So we have to get out of that. If I just get this thing, I'll be happy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all the same road. If I just get this level of whatever achievement at my job, if I just own this thing. For me, it was a very impulsive behavior to spend money, and it was never like really status related. It was just like, I want that, so I must have it, like right here, right now. But it really was just a numbing behavior. I mean, I was just numbing with it. And then when, if I was broke, I'd be like, well, fuck, what else am I gonna do? Like, because, I spent all my money, so it's all gone now. What else am I gonna do? And then that's whenever I would just go start a fight with someone.
Yeah, me too. Like I was really bad. Unfortunately, I got that from my parents, though. My dad just money's gone as soon as he gets it, and he's always been like that. And so it's been very hard to try to break that generational curse. And you're absolutely right. Like I've gone on spending sprees before, and then it's that instant regret of like, why did I do this? And
Mm-hmm.
crap, now I can't buy groceries because I bought a new TV or, a new video game console or something that I could have saved up for and it could have waited. But no, Rob had to have it right now.
Right then, yeah. Yes. Oh, and the shame that you feel when you really fuck up and just spend too much. Like I had no idea how to handle those feelings. So again, I was really comfortable arguing or screaming or, whatever form of tantrum I wanted to have that day. So I could do that really well. I couldn't like deal with, why am I spending money like this? And also I feel so awful that I just did that again. Spent so much money.
And that the temper tantrum's real because we just numb everything with, that pain and that darkness. And you explode, and then when you're done, you feel even worse and you're like, why did I do this? And
Uh-huh.
trying to get to the root of the problem, I think for anybody is a very difficult thing and it's very hard. And especially if you don't want to talk to a counselor or psychiatrist or, another peer or your spouse or whatever, that isolation is huge and destroying, your life. So
Well, I mean, it breeds the shame that's keeping you in this position to begin with. Like, because the more you internalize, the more you're going to rage, first of all, because you have to have some healthy outlet for it. But also, like, I find just talking about something for 10 minutes helps so much because I will hear the thought and recognize, like, how toxic it was or what a lie it was or whatever, versus when it's just circling around my brain over and over, it's hard for me to get the correct, like, angle on it and be like, "Oh, that," now I'm so much better about understanding when my brain's lying to me, where I really find myself like, "Oh, damn, that's still sneaking up." It really is those protective layers where, like, what we were talking about with the negativity, just, like, noticing that I'm making some concrete decision about somebody's actions towards me and then being like, "Oh, I'm taking that personally because I'm trying to protect myself from, being hurt," but it really wasn't personal at all, including a fucking, like, how somebody's driving on the highway. I mean, that was that listen, at least once a week, I'm calling somebody the C word on the highway, I'm not gonna lie about it, but, like, it's so fast compared to what it used to be because I don't let myself get in a hurry at all. I realized that was something that is forever, for the rest of my life, going to activate me, like, I'm gonna be escalated in fight or flight immediately, but it still takes me understanding it's not worth the energy or peace expenditure that's about to happen if I allow myself to get super pissed at a car, but still happens at least once a week, but it's not like a 30-minute rant, and it doesn't ruin my day the way it used to, but, I mean, it happens.
Yeah, we're all gonna be guilty of that regardless, and like I said, I just try to catch myself, like, my current word is fucktard, everybody's a fucktard here lately, and I'm just like, "Okay, do I really need to say that, and is it really a big deal that" as long as I don't get an accident, I guess, obviously, I don't want people cutting me off all the time and riding my butt and doing all the things. I just feel in today's society, if we're gonna talk about driving, people just don't pay attention anymore. They feel like they're solely the only person on the road in their vehicle, and the distractions are freaking
Yeah,
crazy,
yeah.
crazy with the things I've seen while people drive. So, I try to keep that in my reality when I start to flip out, but it still happens sometimes. Even we'll go on a trip, me and my wife or something, and someone will do something stupid, and even my wife's like cussing the person out. But no, you have to calm down and chill out a little bit. So
Yeah. Well, I did get pissed yesterday because I was getting close to the exit off the turnpike, and a big ass semi cut over behind me, but, like, was last minute getting over because he needed to exit there too. And he did it so fast and was barreling up on my ass. That pissed me off because I was scared. And so I did, like, have about 3 minutes of just, "I'm so mad at this guy," and then I calmed down. But, like, because my husband's, like, not understanding what I'm doing because of this guy, and he's like, "What are," "Our exit's right here, what are you doing?" I was like, "I'm trying to get away from this guy who's about to rear end me, and we're in between 2 semis now. I don't want that if this guy's coming up on my ass like that." But, so what do you so you say fitness, mindset, and
discipline,
something else are kind of
Dis-
the
discipline,
what?
discipline.
Discipline. Okay. So what are the things that you're doing? Like, what's one thing in each of those areas that you haven't said that you're kind of doing actively to stay as much in balance in those areas as possible?
So fitness for me has always been super non-negotiable. I can't tell people enough, at least for me, how it's more mentally soothing than it is the actual part of working out
Right.
and trying to have muscle or lose weight or stay healthy or whatever. Because when I go to the gym first thing in the morning and I zone out, like I'm focused on what I'm doing. I'm not really, I get tunnel vision. I don't really see the people around in the gym too much. And for that moment in time, I'm not thinking about work or my marriage or that's my time. And so that I think is instrumental. I think we have to have those non-negotiables to set us up for those wins. that we do over and over again. And that obviously creates the discipline because I've been working out for flipping years, it seems like. Mindset, like I said, practicing gratitude, trying to continue to work on that emotional regulation, listening to my wife if she says, look, I don't like how you've been talking to me here lately, and say, okay, I need to check that. And bringing those things to the table to be able, I think for a lot of us, and especially as men, we have to be able to take criticism. So,
Mm,
just because someone's talking to you doesn't mean that they're slandering you. It doesn't mean that they're talking down to you. And there's multiple times where I thought, my wife was talking down to me. And no, it's just I was upset about something else, or I was upset
yeah.
about the fact that maybe I hurt her feelings, or I didn't come through with something that I said I would in that failure aspect. So the mindset practice, like I said, practicing gratitude, emotional regulation, discipline, because of the military, because being a cop, that's something that I've always been really good of staying true to. But the easiest thing for anybody, just write down what you have to do. Write down what you have to do. And, you try to take care of the simplest things first because that sets you up for a win. And when you set yourself up for a win, you can continue to work and move forward. And I forget the Navy commander's name, but he talks about the importance of making your bed every morning. And that's something that I always do because that's one task I immediately get done. And it's like, okay, I did this. It looks nice. My wife's going to come home. It's not going to be sheets all over the place. So doing those small things to have those wins is important, to stack those wins over time to be able to grow.
Yeah. I love that. Well, where can we find you?
So literally everywhere, if you look at BattleFitted, BattleFitted was the core name or the main name of the brand. My biggest platform right now is Instagram. And if you need to ask me a question, I'm very responsive on that platform. Unlike most gurus, if you message me and it's not anything dumb, crazy, or stupid, I will be the guy that emails you. I don't use auto text. I don't have secretaries. Other than that, battleharder.com is the website. They can actually listen to the Battle Harder podcast through there, see what the Battle Harder podcast is about, what Coach Rob is about, apply for my Operation Relentless coaching. And then the podcast is literally on YouTube at Battle Harder and every audio platform. If you just search Battle Harder, you'll see the podcast.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on today. I had such a good time with you.
Yeah, thank you. We have some good discussions in the mental health arena.
Absolutely. Hey, make sure you've given the show a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening to if you haven't already. And check out my website, empoweredwithmelisahepner.org, or my link tree on Instagram at melissa.hepner to check out my latest offers or workshops. All right, that's it from me. So make sure that you check out the show notes for links. And until next time, let's all just keep swimming.
INDEPE and cut.